G'day. This weekend I was just settling down to do a few of the little tasks that you have built up after a while, and a friend of mine phoned up and asked whether I had any spare dies for a swage roller. Now I've just recently got hold of one of these things, and so I'm still exploring and unpacking it, but he was after some burr dies specifically, and so I had a look through, and while I had a set on the machine, I didn't have a spare set, so I decided, well, what else can I do but copy what I have? So that's what I did. I've never made them before. They're not horribly difficult, but in fact I've never used the sheet metal swage rolls before either, so that's going to be a bit of a learning experience for me over the next few months. But the dies themselves, reasonably straightforward to make. A bit of alloy steel, so should be tough enough. But these fit onto a Heine 43J, I think it is. For those of you who know your Heines, it's the short one. You know, these sort of are pretty much size for size for the original, so they should do him nicely. I'm going to start with the top roll here. It's got some interesting features to it. To get these on and off the rolls, you use a pin spanner, and that's a 7/8 centres there, with those holes measures 7/32, so you know, that's the size it is. But that thread is actually a 1/4 inch BSP. Why they've used it for this, I don't know, but that's what they've done. However, on the back of it, there's a counter bore, and I think that locates on the shaft to try and get a bit of concentricity, a bit of a register. So I'm going to start by making it this way, doing this bit, parting off there, then turning around in the chuck, or in a 4-jaw chuck, and then putting the final shape on the front bit here before drilling and tapping. Not a terribly difficult part to make. I'm making this out of EN25, which is it's a British designation. It's something similar to 4140, so it's an alloy steel, but I think this should be tough enough, and there's also the option, I guess, of nitriding this or something like that if you want it even stronger. I've done just about all I can do from this end. I've counterbored the register there. It's only about 1/4 thou over the shaft size. I've got that drilled out to the appropriate tapping drill size for the thread. So I'm just going to take the corner off that, and then I'll part that off, flip that right in the 4-jaw, and do the facing as well as do the thread going through there. I've now turned the blank around. I used the flange here. I left it a little bit thick. I used the flange here to centre up in the 4-jaw, so that's all good. I'm going to put a tap down the middle next to get that thread in there, just so that I've got the opportunity there of recentering if things go awry and I need to move stuff. I can do that. After that, it's a matter of putting this the shape on there. Now, this is actually a slight, or it's a large radius. It's a slight crowning of it. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to run a 10-degree cut down here, and then I'm just going to use the file to clean up the edges there and just round them over. It won't matter. It'll give it a bit more strength, in fact. So that's the plan there. Once that's all done, I can then just come along and pop those 2 holes in there at some stage, and that'll be it for this one. When tapping in the lathe like this, I do, if it's a small tap, I've got a couple of holders that work here, but for this one it's a little bit bigger. Fortunately, there's a centre pop in the back, so what I do is I put the centre in the tailstock and use that to apply pressure, and so you'll see me with my arms crossed over like that, and that's because I'm continually winding this while using just a wrench to tighten that up. Doesn't have to be an adjustable, it could be just an open-ended spanner, not a problem. And that's how I do this sort of tapping. I do have the lathe, the spindle locked, and the e-stop engaged so that it can't start on me. I don't like the idea of power tapping. Some people can do it quite successfully, but to me it sounds like a good way to break taps. you have to back off to break chips, then you've got to remember to wind the tailstock back. I'm about halfway through putting on my 10-degree angle. I've put some blue on the face there so I can see where I'm going up to. You may be able to pick up that I've had to mount the tool post backwards. It's normally over this side, but to get the 10-degree on the compound, I've had to do all sorts of weird things, which I don't really like much, but that's the way it is. But that should be good enough. And that'll give me my 10-degree there, and then it's just a matter of working that edge there. It's not terribly thick. It looks like it's a bit under 1 millimetre thick, so that'll just be a bit of work with the file and just to round off that edge. One thing I did forget to mention too, when I was boring this out, what I was going to say was that when boring, you want to have your boring bar as short as you can. And the reason for that is just that the amount of deflection you get increases to something like the 3rd or 4th power, I can't remember what it is, of the stick out. And so if you're only boring a short hole, have that in as far as you can, because it gives you more rigidity, less chatter, all that sort of thing. If you always bore with your boring bar out that far, then you're going to get it chatter, poor finish, all that sort of stuff. So there's a tip too. Just keep your boring bar as short as you can. Similarly, because of the diameter involved, that's another power relationship. Use the biggest boring bar you've got. I once had a friend I have a friend who once said that, oh, you only need 1 or 2 boring bars. Well, actually, no, you need several, because as soon as you can get to a bigger one, you should consider going to that, just so that you have, once again, more rigidity in the boring bar. I'd like to think that this one would be easy, but it's got a bit of a twist to it. It's basically a cylindrical part with a bit of a step. That looks like it's got a slight angle on it. I'll have to work out what that is, measure that up, and then just put that on there. But the nasty part about this one is that, as well as being a 1/4-inch BSP thread, it's left-handed. And this gave me a lot of grief when I was trying to get this off there, because I think, why won't this come off? All sorts of penetrating oil, bit of heat, all that sort of thing, and then finally it moved, and it moved in the other direction than I thought it would do. So it's definitely a left-hand thread. I've taken this shaft out because it was easier to get it off the shaft, but this will also come in handy because I can use this as a trial fit. What I'm going to do is work on this side. I've faced off the back and taken the outside 2 diameter, so I'm going to pop a hole through there, and then I'll have to single point a left-hand thread, and so starting at the back, moving out, everything wonderful. I've just finished putting the left-hand thread in here. It goes in reasonably well. I'm reasonably happy with that. Because of the size of the hole and all that sort of thing, I had to do a bit of bodginess. So I had some old high-speed steel boring bar things, and I ground one of those into a threading tip. It's done the job. It certainly helps to have a sample piece to put in there when you get in close, so you can see how good it actually is. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I did try counter boring the back. I'm not sure how successful that'll be. I won't see that until I take it out and have a go. I'm hoping it worked, but we'll just have to see what that's like. But before I take this out, I'll put the groove and the step in the front of this roller, and then yes, checking that counter bore and maybe enlarging. That'll be about the last thing that I have to do with it. Do they work? Well, I'm not sure. These are the originals. Here's a bit of sheet metal, and there's me putting a burr on a piece of sheet metal. Now if I change these, now I've changed these over to the ones that I've just made. and I get basically the same result. So I'm guessing that these are as good as those, and everything's wonderful. So thanks for watching. Hope it's been interesting, and we'll see you for the next one.